everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ. I am Mike Musto along with
Dan Stoner.
Dan Stoner, the man with the pomp and the hot rod in the background.
Man, it's hard living this life, man. It's a lot of, it's a lot of expectation.
It is.
I move out here to California from the East Coast, and growing up as a country boy in the center of Pennsylvania and coming out here, everyone thought, well, they send me off like, okay, good luck out there in California, Dan, do us proud and everything. That's a lot to live up to, dude. It's a lot to live up to.
Dude, I'm a fellow East Coaster. You know that.
Yeah, that's right.
New York.
Yeah.
New York, Brooklyn, Queens. I've been all over.
Right. You started to sound like a rap album there.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, right.
You run the gamut.
A little Paul's Boutique. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, yeah, that's my homeland.
Yeah, no kidding.
Homeland of Brooklyn.
Okay, speaking of which, just as an aside there, not to go off on too far of a tangent, but Paul's Boutique, the Beastie Boys album.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, was there ever really a Janice at Paul's Boutique? That's what I want to know.
I'd like to believe there was. I'd like to believe there was. For those who don't know, which you should know, Paul's Boutique, amazing album by the Beastie Boys. If you haven't heard it, I don't know what to tell you. You just go hear it. Go download it. Go buy it.
That's right.
It's absolutely amazing. So, all right, Dan. So what do we got coming up on this episode of the barbecue?
Well, I think, in celebration, let's say, in expectation and celebration of Scotty Birdsall, one of the things we like to do here on the Hot Rod BBQ is to just kind of ravage the Hemmings classifieds. And we're always looking, you and I talk about this a lot. We ravage those classifieds, looking for like our favorite cars, the things we want to buy next, the things we want to sell next. And, in thinking about Scotty and these amazing cars that he has, and I'm hoping he'll talk more about these when we get on the horn, he seems to be able to take the most unexpected, let's say, vehicles and turn them into some sort of monstrous fire-breathing dragons, right?
That's true.
Like, he seems to do that. So traveling through time and space through the Hemmings classifieds, we stumbled across a 65 Volvo P1800. Now, this thing's a race car now, right? And if you've seen this thing, Mike, I will say, first of all, the Swedes, and let's just say Northern Europe, they do cars a little differently, I would say, than most. And to a large extent, they do some amazing things when it comes to styling and design and, just like different ways to consider suspension and a tail light, for instance, right? But the Volvo P1800 was always sort of it always hits me in my soft spot, right? Like, I've always wanted one of these things, even though the Volvo crowd is a very eclectic group. There's things like the Volvo Mafia I think they're in Denmark maybe, or Sweden. Anyway, we looked at this thing and thought, now if Scotty Birdsall is going to actually build a Swedish race car, let's call it a Pikes Peak runner, maybe.
Sure,
I think he might build something like this, right?
Yeah, and I totally agree. And to tee that up one step further, so our guest on this show is Scotty Birdsall. Now, for those of you that don't know, Scotty Birdsall just set the diesel-powered record at Pikes Peak about a couple of weeks ago. Now, for those who don't know, Mercedes-Benz, that big German car company that makes all the super fast AMG cars.
We've heard of them.
They held the record before Scotty Birdsall from Santa Rosa, California came in with like a 49 Ford pickup and blew them out of the water. Now, granted, it's modified. Okay, we know
a little
that.
Bit, right?
A little bit. But the car that you're seeing right here, this P1800, is in the vein of what Scotty built. And we chose it because it looks like something Scott would build. And we might throw this picture up while he's on. This way he can be like, yeah, I dig that. But then he'll rip it apart and he'll tell you everything that's wrong with the car.
As he would.
But I mean, one of the cool parts about the classifieds is you have everything in there, right? So you could find full-on race cars like this. If you go to the auctions, the Hemmings auctions, you could find cars there. You could find motorcycles. You could find boats. You could find engines. You could find just about anything and everything you want mechanically at Hemmings, which is one of the best parts about working here. And that's one of the cool parts. Like, to take a P1800 like this and which in my opinion is one of the most beautiful cars Volvo has ever made. Because when you think of Volvos, and then correct me if I'm wrong, like I think of like the 240D from the 80s that was just a box.
It is a box. Yeah, it's a shoebox. Yeah.
Right.
But it's safe,
It's safe. Well, and now you've got this, the P1800 came out. It was just a stunning car from every angle. And to see it turned into a wide body, fully tubed chassis race car is pretty wild. So dude, this was an epic find. Well done.
The damn thing's got a wing on it. I mean, come on. And unironically, by the way, an unironic wing. Like it's a wing built to actually do something, right? So.
Right. No, this is cool. So, guys, we're gonna come back in I don't know, 5 or so seconds or whatever the case is with Scotty Birdsall from Chuckles Garage in Santa Rosa, and he's gonna go through how he set the Pikes Peak record, in what he set the Pikes Peak record in, and walk us through what it's like to be the owner of Chuckles Garage in Santa Rosa.
Down with that.
Be right back. Hey everybody, and we're back with our super amazing special guest star, race-winning diesel guy, Scotty Birdsall from Chuckles Garage in Santa Rosa, California. Nice. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys?
Nothing. I just gave you that intro, and that's a lot of build-up. Got to be a lot of build-up. Where's the energy, Scott? Where is it?
What do you want? You want
it? do your best Richard Rawlings for me.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want? I'm always chill. So yeah.
No, I know, dude. Thank you for coming on, man. It is always a pleasure to hang out with you, and coming on the podcast and everything else. So the fact that we want to talk about Old Smokey, Chuckles Garage, Pikes Peak. Everything you've done. Strange Bird,
my favorite.
Right, exactly.
That's right.
So Dan, why don't we start with, well, Scott, give us a brief synopsis of Chuckles and how that started. Then let's go into Strange Bird, because that is one of your most iconic builds. And then let's talk Pikes Peak.
Man, I miss that car. Essentially, my shop is born out of my hatred for the corporate world. I always built cars on the side for people, but I had this horrible job as district manager for Home Depot, and it made me just sink all my savings into my shop and start my shop, and I haven't looked back since. But I started out building, traditional hot rods like
that one.
Other shoulder.
It was parked over there last week. I started out building traditional hot rods, and I got into the more modern stuff, like doing turbo systems and stuff like that, about 5 years ago.
Where did the name Chuckles come from, Scotty?
So my dad's name was Chuck.
Oh.
And he was a police officer, and his CV handle was Chuckles. So everybody called him Chuckles. So
nice. That's awesome. So does that mean that your shop you got a little bit of the blue juice behind you? Like you can kind of get out there and like, look, man, you flash your membership card and you kind of get away with stuff. Is that true?
Oh, kind of. Like half my friends are cops, so I try to.
That helps.
Never hurts. Never hurts. Scotty, how long ago?
Badge tattooed right here too, so that helps.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
When you pulled over, they come over on that side, so you just stick your arm up and look at it.
Right. Yeah, you just fat arm it out that window. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yep.
Scotty, how long ago did you open Chuckles?
12, 13 years ago.
Wow, it has been that long. Okay.
Right. Time flies. Time flies when you're having fun.
Well, I mean, that transition from corporate, because the three of us have all made that transition to say the hell with the corporate world. We're going back into the passion of the cars and everything else that we love.
Right.
Was there ever an iota that you said this is the wrong decision?
No, hell no. No, there's, ever since I made the change, like I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work now.
Right.
And,
right.
And, like the things I build, they mean something. Before I'm just like running some stores for somebody else and making them rich. But now, like everything I do means something to me and other people. and it's a lasting thing. You know, like my Model A back here, like when I'm done with that, like somebody's going to inherit that in 30, 40 years. And it's going to be a thing that just, it lives. It has a life.
Right. So let's talk about, so I think one of the most iconic cars, and Dan brought this up, was Strange Bird. Right. And
yeah,
that car was so rad.
Such a rad looking car. So Mark, our producer's in the background. Mark, do me a favor and Google Chuckles Garage. See if you can pull up a picture of Strangeburg that we'll throw up here in a few. But walk us, how did that come about? Was that a project that you wanted, that you just said, I'm going to build something amazing out of this thing, or what? And walk people through what it was.
Well, so Strangebird was a 62 Ford Falcon. It was an AGS, basically a gasser. And it had a blown and injected 401 Buick Nailhead in it. So it was a little odd. So that's why we called it Strange Bird, because it had a strange power plant.
Okay.
But it had nearly 900 horsepower on an old 401. Jesus. And the thing blew up a couple times, but because it was just too high strung. But
right.
I don't know. It was fun to do. It like the most fun about that car was I built it to the 1967 NHRA rulebook. And the interpretation of the rules was so fun. You know, like, for example, it said you had to have the driver's seat no more than, I think, 12 inches fore or aft of the factory location.
Okay.
So
yeah, there she is.
There it is.
Yep.
And that's actually early on when I built it, before I put any lettering on it, and it's got carburetors on it. But anyways, it had to be 12 inches fore or aft of the factory location. Well, it didn't say the factory location couldn't be the back seat. So I sat in the back seat of this car. So
nice.
And it's all for weight transfer. You know, the engine was sunk back like way into the firewall. You could only see like 2 cylinders poking out of the firewall.
Right.
And just finding all the period parts for it were so fun. I mean, I really want to build something like that again.
And Scotty, that was the way technology was back then, right? Like they thought setting the engine back would equal better weight transfer to the rear wheels on launch, you know, all that kind of thing. So it made sense, especially in a time period when tire technology really hadn't hit its stride yet. So these guys were basically smoking the tires all the way down the track in these things, right?
Yep. That's why they called those things smoker slicks.
Yeah.
So those cars had absolutely no traction. They couldn't hook up anywhere. But it was so fun. I mean,
Scotty, what would that car run? Like, what would that car run in the quarter mile back then, or when you had?
You know, I don't know. It didn't get any traction, so probably 11s.
Okay,
I mean,
that makes sense.
Those old. I mean, back in the day, those guys were doing 11s and low 10s, like with 1,500 horsepower cars. So
that's insane. Right. That's insane when you can go out and you could buy a 10-second car off the lot today.
Right? Yeah, I know. Like I bought a 2021 Supra, and with bolt-ons it does 10s. You know?
Yeah, with the AC on and your Apple CarPlay, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you got your little booty warmer, and you got
So how is it coming from, being a hot rodder, building things like Strange Bird, the T behind you? We're going to go into Old Smokey in a minute, but how is that when you see that new technology? Does that kind of get into your head and be like, God, I need to take this and I need to infuse it in the old stuff?
No, because when it comes to the old stuff, I'm still kind of a purist.
Okay.
Old Smokey's a real horrible example for that, because it's just basically an old truck body on a really modern like GT car chassis.
Right.
But like the 30A behind me, like, it's going to be flathead powered with a 4-speed manual transmission, and split bones in the front, juice brakes, banjo rear end, like no technology. The only tech I'm going to put on it is I'll probably put electronic ignition on it, so it's a little more reliable.
A little more reliable.
Keep it carbureted though.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, so
it's not a hot rod unless you have to bring tools to take it for a drive.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, that's every car I own.
Yeah.
With the exception of my Bronco, that's everything that I own has tools in it. You know, and then like that's the one thing. At what point did manufacturers stop giving us toolkits?
I don't know. Like my new Supra has a toolkit.
Does it really?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, all the BMWs come with toolkits.
The hell are you gonna do with a new BMW with a toolkit?
They come with a screwdriver and a little wrench and some other stuff. I have no idea what to do with it.
When you open up the toolkit, does it just have a little slot for your credit card? Is that all it is? Is that how that works?
I think there's like a PayPal link that's like as soon as you open it, it just charges you money.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So Scotty, let's get into Pikes Peak. So how did Pikes Peak start? How many years ago did you make the conscious decision to say, you know what, I've always wanted to do this? And what was your first outing to Pikes Peak and what was it in? Was it in Old Smokey? And was that the original, goal for it or what?
Yeah. So, I mean, Pikes Peak for me really started when I was a little kid, watching it on Wide World of Sports with my dad and seeing like these just, back then it was always, well, it still is. It's legendary rally car drivers driving these wild, like multi-million-dollar factory efforts up the mountain. But then there was also like the grassroots guys there too. So I've just been fascinated for years and years and years with it. And 3 years ago, I still don't understand why or what made me do it. But 3 years ago, I had transitioned Smokey to start being like a time attack truck. And
it was stock when you bought it, right? Wasn't Old Smokey just a stock pickup?
Yeah, I bought it for $225 and it was just a roach. It had like a dead cat in it and all kinds of stuff. But
and it's a 49, is that it? Is that the year?
Yeah, 49 F1.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically I sent Pikes Peak an email and they turned me down the first year. And then I sent him another one, but this time I did it with like my full racing. I've been racing for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I did some pro racing. So I gave them my resume and they were like, all right, come on down. Okay. And then, my first year I looked like a total squid because I crashed my truck.
I think we might have a picture of that. Was that this?
What's up?
That picture. Can you see that?
Oh, that hurts to look at.
Ooh, I know. So yeah, that was a rough one.
Yeah. So I did that. And then yeah. Oh man, that's so rough. Get that off the screen. So
three for a loop.
Happened. I ended up going to the hospital. They discharged me, and I had 3 herniated discs and a broken tailbone.
Jesus.
And so me making really good life choices, I'd load the truck up, drive it back to California, fixed it, and drove back and qualified for the race.
In the span of how many days, hours?
8 days.
Jesus. God.
Yeah. So
crazy.
I put like a memory foam pad on my seat so I could like sit in the truck because my tailbone was broken. Right. And my neck didn't really hurt yet. So that happened a couple months later. But
yeah.
It was pretty bad. And then the engine blew up in qualifying, so I didn't race, which was a bummer. But I made it back. 2019 I went. We set the fastest diesel qualifying section 1 ever. Okay. And then I get to the race and I'm ready. I'm stoked. I'm like ready to break the record, and it starts raining and hailing and snowing off. And so my run was canceled like mid-track. Yep, there it is, raining.
Raining. Oh man. So how do they do that? So are you wired in via radio to officials and everything? Do they tell you like, all right, you got to pull it off, it's unsafe, or whatever the case is?
No, it was essentially a by run to the middle of the track. It was raining up until the middle of the track. So they just said, you know what, put your reins on and go make a run. So I did that, and I think I had the fastest speed through picnic grounds. I was doing 100 miles an hour in the rain.
Jesus.
It was fun. Like the Toyo rain slicks are crazy. they felt like slicks in the dry.
Really? They were that sticky.
Yeah, they're wild, man. You can't. They're so soft you can't use them in the dry. They will melt.
Right.
So
how is that when you have to make a transition like that? Like, does that throw you off as a competitor and as a driver? Like, do you have to recalibrate your mind to be like, all right, I got to back it down, or I have to mentally? What kind of an adjustment?
Yeah. Basically, when you have to put the reins on, you kind of, especially because I've never driven Smokey in any kind of inclement weather, so I was a little bit freaked out. I was like, oh, this isn't going to go good. It's going to come on the power band, because the thing is, you've driven it. It's the most violent thing ever.
It's obscene.
And, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to toss it in the weeds. I guess I'm going to do it with some style. But I got out there and it handled really good, so I just went for it.
So at what point was that your first? Okay, so it's your first time driving up Pikes Peak in the wet, in Old Smokey with 2,000 plus pound-feet of torque at the wheels on rain slicks. At what point did you get to where you said, "Holy shit, these tires work, they stick"? And what was that progression like? Where you said, "Holy shit, I can push, like I can move this."
I got 3 or 4 corners in, and I just started pushing. But then I backed way down, because I'm like, you know what? There's no trophies, there's no time. I still get a DNF. So I just slowed down and kind of parade lapped the rest of it. But for the first section, I was boogieing.
Okay.
I just had to reel it in so I didn't, end up in the trees.
Gotcha. Okay, so now it's 2020. It's the year of COVID. Everything is turned completely upside down, right?
This year sucks.
Dude, it's 2020's kicked everybody in the ass. But were you worried that Pikes was going to be canceled? Was there talk in the community that, because I know you were working on getting the truck ready for 2020.
Right. I was certain that they would cancel it. Even when they said that they were going to run the race, I was just certain they would cancel it, because every other thing that I had on my schedule was canceled.
Right.
All my land speed events were canceled, every car show, every trade show. And I'm like, how are they going to run, a world-class event like Pikes Peak?
Yeah.
And do all this. And they did. So they did a really good job, like everyone's wearing their masks, staying apart. But
yep.
I worked on the truck like I was going to go race.
Okay.
So I didn't really slow down or do anything like that.
Do you think a lot of competitors did? Like, did you find that there was any type of mad dash at the end from competitors who said, "Holy shit, I thought they were going to cancel this"? Or was everybody in kind of your mindset?
There had to have been, because there was only 44 or 45 competitors this year, and they're supposed to be in the 80s.
Wow.
So
okay.
It also made it kind of the perfect storm for everybody to have a good run this year, because by the time they ran the last car up, it was snowing up top. And right, it's like 75 degrees in the bottom and snowing on top.
Yeah.
It's the only race in the world where you drive through like 3 separate weather systems. It's just it's amazing.
So the prep, because I know that you had worked your ass off to get up there, and then I know once you got up there, you were dealing with transmission problems and everything else. So how did that go? Like you build and you build and you build and you wrench and you try to sort stuff out. And Dan and I, we were talking about this earlier. It seems like regardless of what you do, whether you're a journalist, a doc, whatever it is you do, everything feels like it comes down to the last 5 minutes of whatever event you're going to participate in. So like
it really
what
does.
Happened?
Everything was on its last like little hair at Pikes Peak.
Okay.
So even before I left even before I loaded up and drove to Pikes Peak, I had an engine let go at Sonoma Raceway. And so we had to scramble and throw in a new engine. And the only way that happened is my title partner is Fast Fuel Systems.
Okay.
And Spencer at Fast pulled the race engine out of his personal race truck, threw it on a pallet, and sent it to me, and we threw it in Old Smokey.
Jesus.
So there's number one emergency, partners coming through on that stuff.
Yep.
So then we go through practice, get to qualifying. I'm like ready to party. And, you know, no matter what, you could have the best parts in the world on race cars and you're still going to break them, especially when you've got something like Smokey, which is, I mean, Smokey's uncharted territory for anything.
Destroyer of parts.
It is the destroyer of everything. And so the transmission started slipping into neutral on really hard uphill pulls, and it made the engine go into it made the engine over rev a few times. Well, the Cummins doesn't like to do that, and it ate up the number 1 and number 6 bearings in the for the mains.
Okay.
So Spencer's motor was toast, and I pretty much threw up my hands and I was going to give up. And then, so my fuel injector and fuel pump sponsor, Dynamite Diesel, said, "Hey, I've got a brand new Freedom Racing engine that's for my truck. I'm going to throw that with my best guy here at the shop, and I'm going to send him down from Idaho to Colorado." And it took him 18 hours. He got there. We threw the motor in one day, which was a feat because it takes me like 3 days to change the motor in this stupid truck.
Right.
Got the motor in. Everything's done. When it's setup day, the day before the race, I go in and we start the truck and it's puking water everywhere. So, and the starter sounds funny, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? So we find the water leak. It's a bad water pump. Fix that. Barely get it to setup time, and then and the rest is history. We got to the race and but the living on a you know, tiny thin line. After I got to the top, when I went to start the truck, the starter died. So if I would have tried to start it one more time down on the bottom, I wouldn't even have had a run.
So 3 engines, right? 3 engines
total. Yes.
2, right? How many one transmission or 2 transmissions?
1 transmission.
Okay, 1 transmission. And I know that you had an issue at the line, right? Didn't somebody flick something on that almost jacked you up?
So that was during my last, so after basically I botched qualifying, so I didn't get to qualify. That's why I had to go first.
Okay.
So one of the other competitors reached in and started touching my switches and hit my, there's an emergency misting system for the radiator, and it's like a last ditch thing. But the emergency misting system uses my water methanol fluid to spray on the radiator. And if you don't have, I don't know if you're familiar with diesels, but if you don't spray water methanol into a diesel that's lit up to like 1,400 horsepower, it'll just melt itself down.
Okay.
So the mister system was on. I couldn't tell because it wasn't up to temperature at the line. So as soon as it gets up to temperature, the misting system dumps all the water meth into the radiator. And then the thing overheated so fast it blew the freeze plugs out the side and then started running really slow, like it was hot seizing. It got to like 330 degrees.
Oof.
Right? So I pulled it over. I'm like, okay, well, now we're done. This is 100% done. Because I just burned up a brand new, you know, Freedom Racing engine.
Right.
So we get it back to the shop, and I look at the truck, and I feel like it's talking to me. It's like, come on, buddy, let's try to let's see what's going on. So I drained the oil. There was no metal. Put new oil in it. And in the meantime, my crew guys are like just ready to party. They're like all helping me. Everybody's all in.
Yeah.
Started it up. It ran perfect. And I was just blown away. I'm like, how did this motor do that? But
right.
We made some tweaks to the transmission and broke the world record.
So who held the world record prior to you?
This is my favorite part. So factory Mercedes-Benz. They held the record with an all-wheel drive touring car, that they brought up. So
so they held the diesel world record in a touring car. You show up in a home-built 49 Ford pickup on a race chassis, mildly home-built. Massaged, right?
Yeah, I kind of own a fab shop, so that's a little cheating, but yeah.
No, but you know what I mean. But basically a privateer, right,
Yes.
shows up with this truck and takes down one of the largest, oldest, and most well-respected auto manufacturers on the planet Earth.
Yes, and I'm just pumped on that. Like, how rad
I mean, that's pretty impressive. So how when we talk about that, and you talk about everything that you had to go through, you talk about your sponsors, you talk about your crew. Can you do Pikes Peak without that? And
no.
how important are they to your effort to run these races?
Not at this. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, like, Spencer at Fast came through with an engine, and then Lenny at Dynamite Diesel came through with an engine. It's like, and then ATS, rebuilt my transmission while we sat there and waited for it. So, I mean, without that, you're done. Like, if I was just Joe Schmo and go there and I don't have all this really awesome, factory backing from these, top tier companies, I'm done.
Right.
So now, isn't that one of the things too about like the whole racing community? Because if you're not aware of what happens as just like the casual observer, and they hear about Pikes Peak or they hear about 24 hours of whatever, people just think, well, hey, look, I can just buy. They watch enough TV, I can just go buy a car and I can get into this kind of thing, and maybe there's and I think what people don't understand is like the way you just described this ahead of time was like there is so much stuff, piles of cash being just thrown onto pallets and shipped to you in the form of these race motors, right? And guys just show up to rebuild a tranny, and it's just, that is an amazing little like atmospheric, sort of like depression in the earth where race cars and people and money just dump into, and these amazing things come out the other end, right?
It's pretty cool, like the racing. You guys are into cars. Like, the car community is really tight knit, and all my competitors are supporting and helpful, and everybody's positive and super stoked, and it's just, I don't know, it's
a different world, huh?
It's a totally different world. And I left pro racing in the early 2000s because it wasn't fun anymore, and
was it too corporate?
It's not only corporate, but there's tons of politics, and I hate politics. And it's not necessarily your skill level you can bring to the table. It's a lot of money and sponsors and backing that you could bring to the table as well. And so I'm not into that. And racing Old Smokey at a pro level at Pikes Peak gives me the opportunity to do this shit on my own rules, and not I have sponsors that support whatever I want to do with the truck. I can go to Hoonigan and I can spin donuts and crash it into walls and do half-mile racing or street drive this stupid thing down the street. And it's like, it all brings visibility to their product. And, now they can all say, hey, we've got, like Dynamite Diesel can say, hey, we've got the world record diesel, record because we put injectors and pumps on that. And Fast can say the same thing. They supplied a pump, and Toyo can say the same thing. They put the race slicks on it that got me up there. Garrett, all those guys. They just it's world record stuff now. So
does it feel good as an independently owned shop, with the sponsors that you have and everything, to you look back at, I guess, when you were with Home Depot managing all that stuff, did you ever think from the time that you left that you would be doing this? Was this a vision that you had? I mean, did you always think that, like, one day that'll be me?
No, and that's how I live my life. I just go with the flow, and wherever the path takes me, it takes me. But I kind of felt like when I gave into the whole corporate world thing, and I don't know, I felt dead. You know, I felt like I gave up. You're just going through the motions. So
Right.
I don't feel like that anymore. I'm just stoked all the time, and I just want to go out and party some more.
Now, Scotty, here's a question for you. I got one for you. Like, I look at, because I'm well aware of Strange Bird's one of my favorite cars ever. By the way, that's a 62 with a 63 grill. Is that what it is?
Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, I didn't like the 62 grill, so I put a 63. 63
I'm with you,
grill.
man. The 63 grill is the best one.
It really is.
You know, and then there's old Smokey. And I'm curious to know what kind of customer comes to Chuckles Garage to have a car built, because I mean, I've seen what's out there, and that's not just the average Joe Schmo guy wanting, you know, to put a wider tire under the front of his Volkswagen. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of it's a different kind of Strange Bird coming to you. Would that be wrong?
Right.
Would that be the correct statement?
I've got two different shops. I have Resolute Motorsports too, where we build Porsches. So that's a specific demographic. Yeah. But Chuckles Garage is all encompassing. I'm booked out, you know, till middle of next year. So I get the luxury of picking and choosing like what I want to build. Yeah. You know, if someone calls me and says, "Hey, I've got a blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Oh God, this sounds lame." But like, nope, I'm booked out like, you know, forever. I can't get to it.
You're like a tattoo artist.
Right now at the shop, I've got a 70 Chevelle 454 SS, like really nice car we're building. It's kind of a resto mod, but it's not like nothing cannot be undone.
Gotcha.
I've got a 1970, I think it's a 71 Celica with a 1,000 horsepower 2JZ in it. I've got a 84 or 85 BMW E30 with a 1,200 horsepower 2JZ in it. I've got a twin turbo Mustang that we're building with like 1,200 horse. Basically, I like stuff that's got turbos and just stupid amounts of power.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
So how is it to manage the expectations of your customers? Like when they come in and they're like, "Yeah, I was thinking something like, you know, 600-700 horsepower." You're like, "You know, that's really nice, but why don't you do 1,500?" Yeah. Or like, do you read the customer and advise them properly? Or you're like, "No, we're going big." I don't go.
They'll come to me with like some mild stuff, and I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds cute and all, but you know, you need 1,000 horsepower."
Yeah. Right. Start event. That's the entry point, right? I mean, we'll start the talking at 1,000 horsepower,
and that's not uncommon now, right?
It's not. No, you know better. You've got a car, you buy it. It's got 800 horsepower. It's like 1,000 horsepower is like some bolt-ons for you. So it's like, you know, like my Supra, you can buy it. It's only got like 400 and something horsepower stock, but with like downpipe and a tune and some bolt-ons and, you know, a turbo upgrade, the things are in the 9s. So yeah, it's a different world. This is like right now, like the 70s were cool and the 60s were cool for muscle cars, but right now is like the zenith of, you know, horsepower cars. You know, you've got, I mean, everybody makes something with 700-800 horsepower now.
Right.
Yeah.
So has anybody come to you yet and said, "Okay, I want to do this. Can you put a hybrid system in this, or would you?" Or yeah, that face kind of tells me exactly what I wanted to know. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. Like I want an electric car. I'm like, you know, I'm in this to kind of feed my artistic love for cars and everything. Yeah. And I've seen electric cars. I've driven them. Yeah, they're fast. Yeah, they're fun, but only momentarily. Like you hit, like there's no visceral qualities to it. Like there's no smell. There's no. It's just
the sound. Yeah.
I remember. I mean, like even the new BMWs, like the gas cars, they're so quiet, but then they pipe in through the speaker system fake engine sounds. How lame is that? Right.
Well, dude, I got into a discussion with somebody about, you know, when this was a couple years ago with Tesla, and they were like, "This car will run 10 O's all day," and then I had brought up the Demon, and I was like, I said, "Okay," I said the difference is all you have to do is spend a bunch of money and go to the line. I said, my competition is myself. Can the car run 960s? It can. Can I do it? No, I've got to do everything to get that car there. So you have to learn it. You have to experience it. You have to, you're talking about, and I think that goes from, you know, when drag racing first started all the way up to now. But the electric cars, there's no visceral anything. There's no noise. There's no, you just put your foot down and hold on and go straight.
You get the acceleration. You're like, wow, that's crazy. That makes torque right off the bat. But, you know, there's no power band. Like,
right.
Don't you like to get in a car and when it gets on the pipe and rips your face off, you're like, that was
there's
amazing.
No fear. I want to be a little like, I want to get to the cool part about Smokey and Strange Bird is like, you get into old. I remember when I drove Smokey, I got into this thing and I was like, this is the most terrifying fucking thing I've ever been in my life. Right? You're strapped in, you hit the starter button, you got a helmet on, the whole thing is shaking and moving. You got turbos the size of basketballs on the front. And you're sitting there and you're going, all right, this is the coolest thing that I've ever driven and the most terrifying. And yet I'm strangely aroused. Like, it's that you show me an electric car that's ever going to do that for you.
Never. Never. It won't happen.
Right.
It won't happen. Now imagine driving that same terrifying car up a mountain with cliffs.
Sideways, right?
That's why we're talking to you. I'm not doing that. What are you crazy?
I'll do that in that Model A behind you.
Yeah, exactly. So what is?
I don't think they have enough time on the schedule to get that thing up the hill.
Yeah, start now, next year. Yeah.
So what is next for Scott and for Chuckles? Do you have any other projects? Because, you know, now that you've broken the diesel record, are you thinking about, you know what, I think I'm going after this next, whether it's a high speed run or whatever the case is? What are you thinking about next?
Well, I got a couple things on my plate right now. Old Smokey owns the diesel half mile land speed record. Okay. And it's 167 and some change. And I want to raise that to over 180. So that's one thing I want to do. And then, you know, at Pikes Peak this year, I broke the record and I was in limp mode for like a solid, you know, third of the race because it overheated and went into limp mode at Devil's Playground. And I had to go through that whole top section with, you know, 250 horsepower.
Yep.
So we're going to do a lot of stuff to make Old Smokey version 7 for Pikes Peak in 2021. And, you know, hopefully be in like the low 10s with it. Maybe scrape like 40 seconds off what we have now.
Okay.
But I also want to build an LMP car to take to Pikes Peak that's diesel powered. And then I want to take the Pikes Peak diesel record into the 9s.
Jesus.
So that's my goals.
Yeah. So you've got a full plate. Okay.
What, is there nothing good on TV, Scotty? What the hell?
I hate TV.
I don't even
when I sit down and watch TV, I feel like such a lazy turd. But sometimes you have to, you know.
Sometimes you gotta unwind. You gotta decompress.
Yeah. Well, I come out here like as soon as I get off this podcast, I'm gonna finish putting the seats in my Can-Am.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, we've been going for about 40 minutes. So Scott, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the barbecue.
Yeah, Scott, this was great.
Always awesome to have you.
We might have to. Hey, Mike, we might have to broadcast an episode.
I think we might have to do the barbecue from Chuckles Garage.
I think it's a great idea, Scott.
If you guys want to come down and hang out, I'm more than I got a barbecue set up. I can make some salmon. We'll dial it in.
I think we're gonna do that. I think we're gonna have an episode. Yeah.
Leave the keys under the mat. We'll just be there. Yeah. When you show up in the morning,
you guys want, just holler at me.
That sounds good. Amazing. That's a deal. That's a deal.
All right. So, guys, as always, thank you for tuning into the barbecue. If you want to get a hold of us, you can email us at hotrodbarbecue@hemmings.com. Email questions to me, to Dan. Email your car, your truck to us. Maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe we won't. Right? If you've got questions for Scotty, let us know. We will relay them to him. And if he chooses to get back to you, he will.
I may just look at some of the pictures that come in and just eat some of the smoked salmon that we're going to make at Scotty's place to the email. I might just do that.
I like you guys haven't lived until you've had my barbecued salmon.
Ooh.
Okay.
Perfect.
This is
Good deal.
this is good. It's a
Gauntlet-
date, Scotty.
Gauntlet thrown, Scott. Gauntlet thrown.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Scotty, thank you so much for coming on. And we will talk to you very, very soon when we plan this delicious menu.
Sounds good.